The horrors of co-sleeping. Reddit, I'm here under an anonymous account to get some issues off of my chest. These are the things I want to say to my wife, but can't say to my wife, so I'm going to share some contrarian advice to parents who are thinking of co-sleeping with their children. I have an established career and make practically all of our income, while also working through an engineering degree on a part-time basis to build long-term career growth. My wife is starting a less demanding career, so she works a low-income internship from home and handles 90% of our kids' needs. 3 years ago, we had our first 2 children. My wife had done a lot of reading about co-sleeping and was dead set on it. I trusted her judgment. I wish I hadn't. As it happened, our first son had a colic for 6 months, causing him to wake up in the middle of the night shrieking in pain, repeatedly, every night. It quickly became apparent that I couldn't keep serving as the primary income source and maintain any progress in my studies on chronically low sleep. I bailed out of our bedroom and moved to a basement couch so I could sleep through the night and keep our income stable. Our family life essentially vanished. My wife was dealing with ongoing health issues and experiencing low libido. Our loss of regular physical contact at night created a loss of emotional connectedness. And our bed was almost constantly occupied by our son at night, which put a big dent in our usual spontaneity. My wife had decided that our boy would be co-sleeping until he was ready to move into his own room. I expected our split sleeping arrangements to be temporary, but we didn't really talk about a specific timeline, so this temporary arrangement turned into a year, and then 2 years, and then 3 years. We argued frequently, which always ended, we committed to this together, and I think that stopping now will cause bigger problems, so our best choice is to continue. She's done all the reading, so again, I have to trust her judgment. Our second boy was born shortly before our first boy turned 3. Again, my wife was dead set on co-sleeping. I figured it would just be more of the same, and not much would change, right? Wrong. Our older boy apparently isn't crazy about sharing his mama. He began exhibiting severe boundary issues, constantly cramming up against her at night, pushing his feet into her, pulling her hair, touching her face. My wife was already coping with postpartum depression, and his behavior provoked episodes of rage. Nothing serious came of it, just full-volume shouting and slamming doors, but it created some scary moments. Eventually, she caved on co-sleeping, a little. She bought a child's bed for our older boy and put it next to the expert bed. But he refuses to sleep in it through the night, he frequently crawls into the main bed. He won't take no for an answer. She's now trying to move him to his own bedroom next door. It's not working. As a result of all this, our oldest boy has developed severe sleep issues. He cannot sleep through the night without waking up, crying, waking up everyone else, and demanding to sleep with mama. He has no circadian rhythm, some nights he's out by 7 p.m., other nights he absolutely will not sleep until midnight or later. When he's tired, which occurs often, including midday, he becomes frantic, will not stay in bed, will not listen to instructions, cries constantly, and sometimes resorts to throwing toys and hitting everyone, including his 6-month-old brother. And we absolutely cannot get him to stay in his room through the night, short of locking the door from the outside. My wife is massively strung out. Every night is an enormous struggle to get our son to bed, in addition to feeding our younger son when he wakes up through the night. She's underslept and exhausted. She's also dealing with chronic pain and health issues from birth. It's been 7 months, and a battery of medical tests has failed to reveal a cause. And I've been stuck in a moderate depression for over a year. My productivity is way off, which reduces our income, leading to mounting credit card debt and financial anxiety. I've reached the conclusion that most of these problems resulted directly from our commitment to co-sleeping. I don't know whether she misapplied whatever technique she learned about it, or whether we've just had an awful run of bad luck compounding bad luck. Obviously, now is not the best time to share that realization with my wife, but I'm having severe regrets about the trust one placed in her judgment. I feel like I've been just hanging on, waiting for things to get better, but it seems like we're years away from any kind of resolution. I guess I'm open to advice, but mostly just needed to tell my story. Looks like you've developed a bad case of her decision, her problem. It needs to become our decision, our problem, which means that you need to have an active role in all of it. Having a day job is no excuse, she's got one too, and hers is a lot longer than 8 hours a day. When the older child gets up at night, who puts him back in bed? When the younger one wakes up, who does non-feeding duties like diapers and dressing? You've basically said that you've left the bedroom and now you're sad that things are going poorly even though your wife is doing all of the work. You need to study up too. You need to participate in bed training your toddler. You need help with night feedings. Get back in there, soldier. It may be hard to wrestle away some of mommy's control on the situation. It'll be hard for her to admit she needs help because she's gone without it, and likely not felt she needed it, for so long. Be patient with her, and with yourself. It'll be hard at first for her to sit back and let you do things, but you must. You're not a roommate, you're not a babysitter, you're dad. Ask yourself, if mommy left for a week, could you hold down the fort? If the answer is no, make it a yes. So, it makes sense that your wife handles the majority of hands-on childcare. But it sounds like you're dumping the entire mental load of raising your children on her, too. She's done all the reading, so again, I have to trust her judgment. Okay, and is there a reason you can't crack a book and help her figure out how to deal with some of these ongoing issues? You're going to need to tread carefully here so that she doesn't resent you, but you need to listen to what she's telling you about the kids, let her relay info from the pediatrician, and do some research of your own. Prepare yourself to be able to give her some feedback and opinions. Not only might the two of you be more successful at coping with your problems if you work on them together, but you might also help her to feel better about her situation and your relationship. A few more notes. Your youngest is 6 months old? So, you're in the thick of it. It's especially important to remember, this will not last forever. It won't even last exceptionally long, in the grand scheme of things. That's really not that bad. Stop blaming everything on your wife. You're starting to regret trusting her judgment? What was she supposed to do, just put the kids on ice while she waited for you to make some decisions? So, it makes sense that your wife handles the majority of hands-on childcare. But it sounds like you're dumping the entire mental load of raising your children on her, too. She's done all the reading, so again, I have to trust her judgment. Okay, and is there a reason you can't crack a book and help her figure out how to deal with some of these ongoing issues? I don't think that's really fair. When one parent has basically all their time and energy to devote to researching and planning, they can win arguments through simple endurance. I'm sure all of us have eventually caved to one thing or another simply because we've run out of energy to keep fighting about it. With OP working, going to school, and starting a family, I can see how his reserves would be pretty low. He says that they argued frequently about it and that his wife was dead set on doing it. Most of us are going to give up and acquiesce at that point. If OP is being accurate in his storytelling, then virtually all the blame goes to his wife. Non-sleeping is obviously not working for them, and that should be apparent to her. Her husband moved to his own bed, the kid sleeps terribly, they've argued frequently about it, and she's not getting sleep either. Short of divine intervention, I'm not sure what would make her see the reason. When one parent has basically all their time and energy to devote to researching and planning. Wait, what? Since when does a stay-at-home parent of a toddler and a baby have so much more time and energy to devote than a working father does? Her time and energy are spent taking care of extremely needy little kids, schlepping them to the doctor and back, grocery shopping, making breakfast, lunch, and dinner, doing laundry, and keeping the house clean. Not to mention taking care of any pets you may have. She has the same amount of free time and energy that you do, OP. Or actually less, due to her dealing with the co-sleeping problems while you snooze elsewhere. I completely understand the need to get a good night's sleep if you're working, but the point remains that she doesn't have any more time and energy than you do. I've been through this as well. It seems to me that priority number 1 is to reconnect with your wife. No happy outcomes evolve from emotional distance, and you both will need support from each other to get through this rough patch. My marriage only got back on track because neither of us could stand living in a Cold War any longer. I would be frank about how you feel disconnected, ask her if she feels the same. I can't imagine that she doesn't. Postpartum is a time of intense need for connection. The other circumstances add pressure, but the aspect that makes it unbearable is feeling unloved and disconnected. Talk openly and honestly about how you are hurting and invite her to share her own pain. This will develop new empathy and intimacy and give you both sense emotional relief. It's not easy to do, though. Make sure to conduct the conversation in a way that allows both of you to talk honestly about what you need from the other. If someone gets agitated, pause the conversation, and agree to try again once they cool down. Accept whatever she says and communicate that you expect her to do the same. Make a plan for how you can provide for both partners' needs, starting with each of your highest priority needs. Again, it takes two. Each of you will have to do things you don't really have the energy for, but doing it gives your partner relief and helps you both to recharge. Emotional energy is super important. Even if you can't sleep as much as you ought to, having that love and emotional support will change everything. You'll feel more able to handle the hard moments with grace, and you'll get some measure of support when you need it. Be unflinchingly honest about your highest priority need, because for a while that may be all your wife has time/energy for. Whatever it is, make it clear that you will give your wife something equally important to her in exchange for it. All of the adults in this situation have on or undertreated depression. That will manifest itself in your kids' behavior, and it sounds like it is manifesting now. So, I would not be so quick to blame sleeping for all of this. Not being available mentally is absolutely real and may be fully justified by having all childcare dumped on her and being sleep deprived to boot, but that doesn't make it a thing that doesn't have to be dealt with. That said, I think anyone who fully commits to sleeping before even meeting the kid, and on the basis of having done a lot of reading about it, is putting the cart before the horse. It is a choice that has to be made and remade according to circumstances, not a hell-bent one-time opt-in/out on the basis of extensive reading. You have an infant and this situation isn't going to get better fast. Get the mental health treatment you both need to get you through, to start with. Stop blaming a one-time decision in the past for something you are both doing on a continuing basis. You left your wife to fend for herself at night with the children and now you're upset that you don't get to dictate how that goes? And you want your exhausted wife to perform favors when she's not caring for your children? I don't think you have a bed-sharing problem, I think your wife has a husband problem. Really? She made the call, she had all the information, he had to do what he had to do to support their family, and her decision to co-sleep caused every last one of these problems. They both need to see a therapist about their depression, but let's not blame him for letting his wife make a decision and then doing what he has to do to keep them afloat because of it. Based on these comments, I might be the odd one out, but these are many of the reasons why I didn't want our daughter in our bed. I love being a mom and I love my daughter, but my husband comes first. It's also healthy for children to learn how to sleep in their own space. Our daughter has always done better in her own room. I think you need to establish a bedtime routine. We've been doing the same steps every night for bed for our 16-month-old daughter since she was born. Lotion/oil, jammies, low lights, book, hairbrush, and teeth brush, etc. I like the idea someone mentioned of letting your son choose things for his room to make him excited about switching to his own room. Having 2 kids and facing postpartum depression, your wife probably doesn't feel like herself and she's also facing health issues. Is she getting proper support? I think this is a classic working husband, stay-at-home mom struggle where she probably feels she needs support with the kids but doesn't know how to communicate because after all you work hard and provide. You both need to reconnect, and I think ending the bed sharing and allowing you those moments in the evenings together would be so important. Some of my favorite time is those few minutes before we fall asleep each night. It's not always family life for an hour and passionate, sometimes just a short cuddle and good night. So, you just dumped all childcare duties on your wife so you could get decent sleep? Gee, wonder why libido tanked. Here's the thing about kids, they are all different and a lot of them do not sleep well. You could have had this issue with baby waking frequently, co-sleeping doesn't cause colic, and needing constant care even if he were in a crib from the first minute you brought him home. How do I know? B/C, I had a kid in a crib and she drove me insane with her night waking. But I had my husband next to me, and he helped. Yes, even if he was a little tired at work the next day. We all just started going to bed as early as possible so we could get enough interrupted sleep. Like 7 or 8 p.m. bedtimes for the whole house. I also co-slept with a child that uses her own bed. Mostly. It also sounds like, with a lack of help, your wife hasn't been able to regulate your oldest child's schedule. At 3, he may be down to just one nap per day, or even no more naps. When this happens, I set up mandatory quiet time. You don't have to sleep, but you do have to play quietly in your room with the lights out for reasonable amount of time here. And maybe I turn off the timer to extend quiet time beyond 15 or 20 minutes or whatever. My general rule for sleeping is that I want about 6 hours between the nap wake up and future bedtime. If you want bedtime to be at 8, nap time must be fully over by 2 p.m. Wake them up even if you are really enjoying the silence. Get the kids active in the afternoon to help wear them out so they are ready for sleep. Establish an evening routine of closing blinds and turning off the TV, then turning off overhead lights, later turning off lamps, and finally having only night lights to guide you. Going to bed with a full belly also helps, which means I don't harass the fussy eater. I just provide a dinner alternative like peanut butter and jelly to ensure full bellies and no fighting or crying leading up to the end of the night. A nice warm bath changes body temperature to prepare you for bedtime. And then once they're in bed, if they aren't falling asleep on their own, that's fine. Let them know they can lay there, with a nightlight, and finish looking at the pictures in a book, or even play quietly in bed with soft, quiet toys and you'll be back soon to check on them. I sometimes use excuses like, oh, I have to do something in the kitchen, but I'll be back in a few minutes, and sometimes I don't need to go back at all because they fall asleep on their own. If they do come looking for you, I was just about to head back in, but you need to go lay down, please. Guide them back to bed, spend maybe 30 seconds making sure they're in place and then just one last thing for me to do in the kitchen, and see if leaving them alone again will help. If not, okay, it's time for bed so I have to stop coming in here, but you can stay awake as long as you stay in bed. And then you close the door and let them be. If they don't come out of their room, their light stays off, and their noise stays low, just let them be. Eventually, they will get tired and go to sleep. But you need to step up in a big way to be a more involved parent and to be a better partner to your spouse. She cannot do it alone. In fact, having parented alone for a long time with an absent spouse, military, nothing scandalous, the exhaustion of taking care of my kids, taking care of my spouse, facilitating the relationship between my kids and my spouse, I end up cutting a lot of corners on parenting and self-care. Basically, I had no self-care, and I did a lot of lazy parenting. Some of it really ended up working out well, like the closing the door thing after bedtime and ignoring whatever was going on behind that door. Some of it did not, like my kid having epic tantrums that went on for 6 hours. That one ended up requiring professional help. And if I'd had an involved partner, it would never have gotten that bad, to begin with. My husband couldn't help it, he simply wasn't home, but you can help it. You are home. Help your wife. Don't wait for her to ask, you are an adult, you know what needs to be done around the house and what kind of care the kids needs. You also know she needs care. Good luck. Co-sleeping with an infant with another child in the bed is highly unsafe. Also, both of those kids need to get out of your bed. You're allowed to change your mind if something isn't working for your family, and this is not working for your family. You might need to consult a sleeping professional, but some basics for your kids: they need a bedtime routine. They need to get to bed at a decent hour, or they risk being overtired. In terms of what method you use, I don't have recommendations for older kids. But something has to change, because your marriage is more important than co-sleeping. As someone whose home and relationship were once ravaged by the horrors of sleeping as well, put your foot down. I've seen people mention that you need to tell your wife how you feel, and I'm guessing you've done that, but maybe speak from a place of compassion and wanting to fix things, rather than blaming her? Yes, she's the one that wanted to cowslip. And yes, you tried to tell her it wasn't working. But today there is a lot of weird unfounded pressure for parents to cowslip. Pressure on moms on these types of forums, at least. She thought it was the best thing for the kids, so she committed. Can't fault her for that, I guess, although I'd never do it. Neither of your health issues are going to subside without work and support from the other. Sounds like your wife is drowning in everything going on right now, and so are you. It doesn't really matter who caused this to happen, what matters is the desire to fix things. Get the kids out of that bedroom with your wife. Insist on it. Put in the work and don't be deterred by how hard it is at first. It needs to happen, but it isn't going to happen with an "oh woe is me, my wife has ruined our lives" attitude. Edit, I said, although I'd never do it after talking about how sleeping messed up things for us, huh? Sounds a bit hypocritical, but my stepson's mom closet and then refused to give it up even when it was causing severe issues between homes. I have never slept with my biological kids. I'm sorry for your experience. I believe that every family should do what's right for them, and it really sounds like co-sleeping wasn't the right option for your family. I would suggest a couples counseling session so you can express your feelings to each other in a safe place. For what it's worth, co-sleeping worked for us, but in our case, we both agreed on it. Our sons are 2 years apart, and when our oldest was 3 and wanted to sleep in his big boy room, his little brother, then 1, wanted to follow and be with his big brother. The little one is now a few days short of 5. Sometimes he tries to sneak in like a ninja to sleep in our room, but he gets sent back out. Today, both boys have their own rooms, each with bunk beds, but they are close brothers, and choose to sleep together in the same bed. It works for us. Also, I too had postpartum depression, and encourage your wife to see a psychiatrist and therapist if she isn't already. Thanks for sharing your story, and best of luck to you and your family. Seems like bed sharing isn't the only or even biggest issue here. I bed share with my toddler son in his room while my husband sleeps in our bed/our room. It's very normal that young children don't want to sleep alone. If you have a separate room for your 3-year-old, maybe you can sleep in there with him so he's not alone. He might even sleep more soundly away from mom and baby. If you aren't having family life as much as you'd like, but the health issues, depression and exhaustion need to be managed first. Maybe therapy to talk out your frustrations. Why does your wife need to be a child-rearing expert? How can you expect to have a reasonable, rational discussion of the pros and cons of your current situation if you can't contribute to the conversation past complaining about it? You and your wife are not on the same page. You need to get a couples therapist to navigate discussing the issue because it has become too emotionally charged for you to do it on your own. You are essentially attacking your wife's abilities as a mother at this point because you've handled it so poorly, and you're going to need a neutral third party to help translate. Open up a book and do some reading of your own. This is something that drives me crazy in my relationship. If I have made a parenting decision or chosen a strategy based on research, then I expect my spouse to do the same homework, and he rarely does. You want a solution? Go find some and tell your wife what you have read and what the plan is. Step forward and take some responsibility for nighttime parenting.
Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share and subscribe. The Internet Surfer on YouTube for more horror and scary stories.